Hi, my name is Jeremy, this is Red Muse Recording, and today I want to talk to you about learning music and learning music production, and a bunch of resources that I think will probably help people on their way towards becoming more well-versed in those subjects. That was a really lame intro, but I've done it like 5 times and now. So I've been doing music production lessons online for about 2 years now, and one of the things that I have noticed is that there are common themes with people running into blockers with how they want to learn, what they know, what they don't know, and what they both know and don't know they don't know. I'm sure that makes sense. I spent a lot of time thinking about answers to these questions that keep coming up, and through that, I've kind of broken down the process of making music into a few pillars, and we're going to go through each pillar, and we're going to talk about resources that I think might help you have a better understanding of that particular facet of making music. I have an iPad here with my notes, so I'll be referencing this a whole bunch. So the main pillars of music production that I've come up with that we're going to be discussing today are genre, synthesis, music theory, both theory and application, and mixing and mastering. These are the pillars of making music, the sort of facets of making music that I think everyone can practice and get deeper understanding of and get better at in order to make better music that they're happy with. So let's start with genre and talk about what that means and the resources that I think will help you understand genre. So when we come to making music because we are so inspired by music. We love it so much that we want to do it ourselves. It's something that's very alluring to us. There's just a sort of magic to it. I completely understand that. So the first step in that is really understanding sort of the meta genres of music. There's a lot of information coded in genre, a lot of history and technique, and sort of the language of genre speaks a lot to the kind of techniques that you'll be using when you make music in it. So one of the things that's really helped me over the time was really I've tackled a lot of genres that I fell in love with, and I try to learn as much about them as possible. And one of the blockers that I've seen from people when they're making music is not having a deep enough understanding of what makes genre what it is. And when I'm talking about genre, I'm talking about things like the overarching genres, like for instance in electronic music, like house, drum and bass, techno. And then I'm talking about micro genres, of which we have tons, because electronic music has been around, especially electronic dance music has been around for a long time. It's gone through a lot of iterations and a lot of mutations. And now we have a ton of micro genres or subgenres of those music. Honestly, some subgenres can be a little overly specific, but I still think it's important for everybody to have a deep understanding of what genre they're listening to and what the techniques and hallmarks of that genre are, so that you can better deploy these things in your music when you are trying to create something that either is in that genre or spans genres. There's no reason that you have to stick in one genre, but I still think it's like a style of painting or a style of sculpture, and I think it's really, really important to understand. So how can we get a better understanding of genre? Well, the number one resource I'd say would be Isker's Guide to Electronic Music. This thing has been around for a while now and has gone through different iterations. Some of them back with Flash, they weren't very pretty. The newest one I think is 2019 current, so still a ton of information in there. It's kind of like a subway map. On the left-hand side, we have the sort of starting genres, the sort of beginning of this stuff. And as we move to the right, we move through time and we get more and more subgenres and more examples of different types of music that are broken off from this. Each one of the little chunks that has a subgenre or genre in it, you can click on and you can get instant examples of what some of the hallmark sounds and songs of that genre sound like. If you click into the genre, you will get information about the genre, its hallmarks, and maybe a little bit of history. It's incredible. It's just an incredible resource. Just so you know, it does get snarky at times, maybe even a little rude regarding subgenres, but the information is really, really valuable. And if you've never thought about genre or knew what a particular genre sounded like maybe you've heard of the genre, but you've never actually listened to it, this is where you're going to want to start. This is an amazing resource. And so as you're listening, start taking notes in your head, oh yeah, that's what that is. Okay, so what kind of stuff does that genre depend on in order to make itself work? It's just going to be a really great resource for you to start being able to pick apart the different hallmarks of genre and what that means, and maybe find a new direction or enrichment for the kind of music that you want to make. Another great resource for genre, and this kind of is tangential of genre, but still very, very important, is a website called whosampled.com. Whosampled.com is a website that lets you look up a song, let's say a Daft Punk song, and see the samples that were involved in making that song. And this can be really, really enlightening. One of the things that always kind of tripped me up when I was making music or starting to make music was the concept of sampling and how tracks used samples to evoke the kind of thing that they were evoking. Daft Punk is a really great example of that, because I don't know if a lot of people who are just getting into Daft Punk understand that, like, some of their songs are literally just like a sample with a 909 bass drum underneath. Like, they are very, very dependent on flipping samples. This website's huge. You can also see who sampled the song that you look up too. So this will start to bridge the gap between like what's been written by someone and what's been transformed by someone. And as somebody who loves using samples in their music, this has been a really, really great resource for me to understand how samples are flipped throughout genres and what that means from a production standpoint. So whosampled.com is a really, really great site to spend some time on. And then finally, we have something like Beatport, beatport.com, which is a website where you can purchase tracks, electronic music tracks. I used to use it for purchasing DJ tracks all the time, because you can get really, really high quality stuff from it, and its genre system is very, very robust. So if you want to go to a website and hear like the top 100 tracks in a particular genre right now, unfortunately in very terrible quality unless you purchase the track, you can start to do that as well. So it's kind of like a more up-to-date version of Isker's electronic music guide. However, you're only going to be able to hear a little bit of the track unless you buy it. But that leads me to the final point, and that is use your streaming platform of choice, if you subscribe to one or use one, to start building playlists or explore playlists based on genre and artists. Once you understand what an artist kind of ecosystem in terms of their genre falls into, you can explore that genre or that label or those artists' peers and start to understand what makes them tick from a production standpoint. I will continue to harp on genre as one of the most important things we can kind of like spend time studying, because it's sort of like, it's the production music theory. It's like looking at art. It really, really informs so much information when you spend time to understand the history, the techniques, and the politics around the kind of music that you may be interested in making. And finally, final note, use Google. Use Bing if you want, I don't care. If you get excited about an artist or a genre or a technique or something like that, start looking them up in your search engine. Start looking around for information around their production. Search for like artist name, production, and see if you can find information on forums or an article that was written about what they did, how they did it. Like, I've gotten my mind blown watching videos about how Burial made Untrue and how he flipped samples in that. It really opened up my eyes. And that kind of information is everywhere. And it's really, really important as a fledgling music producer that you are hungry for all information. You're going to be getting a lot of information from everywhere that you possibly can, so that you can start to build up a little map in your head of sort of like how this works. Like start understanding the language of how this works, because there's a lot to learn, and you really, really got to be hungry for that information. The next pillar, the next thing that I think is really, really important for people to learn is synthesis. How do we make sounds with synthesizers? Synthesizers being things that, like, I mean, there's tons of them out there, but I think, from a beginner's standpoint, software synthesizers are going to be where it's at. We have things like Vital, which is free. It's an amazing wavetable synth that you could probably make an entire album with. There are tons of really, really great free software synthesizers out there that you can learn on and grow with. And then, if you want to, you can move on to things like Serum, which is an industry standard and has been for a long time. Pigments, there's Omnisphere, there's all kinds of stuff. And then, of course, we have hardware synthesizers as well. Unlike software synthesizers, which you can duplicate over and over and over in a track, in a DAW, a digital audio workstation, you can't do the same for a hardware synthesizer. So keep that in mind. They're really fun to play with, but they do have their limitations. We need to learn how to use them, how to take the tools that are in synthesizers and then turn them into the sounds that we want to use. or how to edit presets in a synthesizer or a software synthesizer so that we can make it fit the kind of music that we want. There's nothing wrong with presets. Presets are really fantastic, and I use them a lot when I'm using software synthesizers, but I usually go in and edit stuff. So it's really important to understand the architecture of your synthesizer so that you can make the right choice and not just have the presets sort of push your production into a realm that maybe you didn't want it to go. So there are three suggestions I have for this. The number one is called Syntorial. It's a not free program, but it does go on sale quite often. I have some videos on it on this channel that I'll link in the description. Syntorial starts from the very beginning and shows you how to identify like waveform types in your oscillators, and then moves on to things like envelopes, filters, effects, and LFOs. It gets very, very advanced, and it stumped me even after, decades of doing this. It's the number one resource I can suggest to you if you want to learn how, like, a really in-depth view of how synthesis works, so that you can walk away from it feeling, much more confident in being able to choose the right tools for the track that you're making. The next suggestion is Learning Synthesis from Ableton. There's a Learning Music and Learning Synthesis, and we'll get into the Learning Music one later. This is a really, really cool free online thing to get you started learning how synths work. It's interactive, it's very slick, and it'd probably be my number one stop, like the first stop before we spend money on Syntorial. But yeah, learning synths from Ableton, really, really fantastic resource. And I suggest you go check it out if you've ever been curious about how synths work. There are a lot of really, really good articles written. Everyone learns differently about how this works. I am suggesting things that are interactive. I want people to be able to involve themselves in the process and then be able to apply it and get a result. But for instance, like an article on Perfect Circuit's Signal blog called Learning Synthesis is a great sort of just like linear reading experience to get some of the terms under your belt. Everybody learns differently, and so maybe you want to start reading about it before you jump into an app that asks you to engage with it. So all the stuff is linked in the video description. All of these suggestions are sort of like the basic building blocks. A lot of people want to jump right into learning how to make sounds specific for their genre. Complex dubstep sounds were really, really popular, or complextro sounds. I don't really recommend that, even though sometimes you might just need to like push way advanced just in a pinch when you're making a piece of music. I really think a good understanding of the fundamentals is going to help you. But that said, don't be afraid to go onto like YouTube or something like that and search for genre, sounds, production, maybe the synth that you're using, and find some tutorials that work for you. AU5, for instance, is an amazing YouTube resource for like complex hypergrowls and wubs and stuff like that. It's a holistic approach. You want to learn as much of the fundamentals as you can, but there's no reason not to like jump forward a little bit and see if you could like learn some of the more advanced fun stuff while you're doing it. Okay, this next one, music theory and application. This is the hardest one. A little bit of background around me. I grew up playing the flute. I was a classical flautist. I went through all of elementary school, middle school, high school, and then into college as a flautist in symphonies, in jazz ensembles. I had a lot of classic and jazz, sort of fusion jazz, under my belt in a way that like I kind of osmosed music theory through all that process. I never really took a lot of theory classes, and in fact, when I got to college, I quit the music performance route that I was on and switched over to more audio engineering. So for me, this is the hardest one to talk about because I've spent so long building these skills, like decades when I was younger. It's been hard for me to talk to people about music theory specifically because I don't have the vocabulary for it. And it's a very difficult language to invoke with people if you don't have a lot of experience like teaching it. That said, I'm not terrible at it. It's a very difficult thing to explain to people. It's a very complex subject. So how can we as complete beginners learn music theory? As with the synthesis stuff, this is going to be sort of a combination of videos and apps, engaged apps that you can engage with. So let's start off with some videos. Andrew Huang, you may know him, has a video called Learn Music Theory in Half Hour. It's a half hour of your time. Just go watch it. See how it feels. If your brain is like, oh, this is cool, then we can move on to other things. If you're like, I don't get any of this at all, then maybe you need to find another way to learn this, which, of course, I have suggestions. I have 2 playlists, the Yale Music Theory course and the Dr. B playlist of music theory. Both of these are going to follow a similar sort of path in that they are going to walk you through sort of the fundamentals of music theory. And when I'm saying music theory, what I mean is the understanding of what notes and scales and scale modes and then eventually chords and putting chords together, what that does to a piece of music. You can't understand a lot about music's tension and language and evocation if you don't understand why, from a music theory standpoint, a series of notes put together in a certain way invokes a particular feeling in somebody. You just can't. You're not going to be able to like fake your way through that. There's a lot of talk about music theory not being necessary to make electronic music, and I don't think you need a ton. Like I said, I don't have a ton of formal music theory training, but I do have a lot of taking what I learned from flute and then applying it to learning keyboard on my own while playing along with other people's music. And that really, really helped me understand how things worked in the music that I loved. We'll get to that last point in just a little bit. So we have Andrew Huang's Learn Music Theory in Half Hour. We have the Yale Music Theory course and the Dr. B Music Theory course, both playlists on YouTube, completely free. Just start listening to them while you're on your commute or while you go for a run or something like that. And then we have a couple more interactive things. So we're going to start off with Ableton Learning Music. This is a free online resource like Ableton's Learning Synthesis. It's going to walk you through some music theory concepts, specifically with sort of Ableton and a DAW in mind. So great free resource. Go check it out. I don't know how long the course takes, but I'm assuming it's not probably super long. So you're not going to waste a ton of time if you don't necessarily get a ton out of it. But again, we're trying to get a holistic approach to this. We're trying to get a lot of things into our brain so that we can start to make connections about how music works. The next couple things I'm going to suggest cost money, but I think they're probably worth it. And you can choose for yourself whether or not you want to spend money or whether or not one of these is going to work for you. The first number 1 paid suggestion I'm going to make for this is called Audible Genius Building Blocks. I suggested Syntorial for the synthesis thing, and this is made by the same people. So basically, it seems to be a way of ear training and learning through sort of more modern interpretations of music theory, electronic music interpretations of music theory, stuff that you actually would use while making electronic music, as opposed to having to ramp yourself up all the way through classic music theory into something that you might use. It's very directed. It starts you off making drum beats and being able to hear how rhythms work, which is super, super important. And then eventually it's going to ask you to reproduce melodies and chord progressions and stuff like that, all within a sort of DAW piano roll edit sort of environment or drum roll edit sort of environment. It seems like it's a great resource. I think it's a subscription, but there are a few free lessons. So definitely go check out the free lessons, see if it sparks any interest in you. And then if you want to commit, this would probably be the number 1 thing I would start with on this entire list. It seems like it's going to be a really, really good resource for somebody who's getting started and wants to demystify a lot of these processes. So the next 2 are apps that are at least available for iOS. The first is musictheory.net. This has a free version, and then you can pay for an app as well. It's actually online. You don't need to go to it in an app. It's a kind of a dry approach to learning music, but it's very, very well done and in a great order. And you can just sort of look at it while maybe you're getting ready for bed or something like that. It's a very passive, but probably very fantastic resource for learning some of the ways that music works and music theory concepts. And then finally, we have an app called Musician. So I'm recommending this one with a caveat in that it seems very, very slick. And there's a premium option, which I have not paid for, so I do not know where the free option ends and the premium option ends. But I did go through a few of the lessons. They have ones for guitar, voice, piano. Oh, hi, Kat. Wow, that was quite a sound. I was investigating the piano one, and it's actually pretty cool. It starts you off in C and asks you to move around the keyboard on C. And the cool thing about it is it has a keyboard built into it. So if you have an iPad or something like that, you can play on it. Or if you have a piano or something that will make sound out of it that you can play, it will listen to that and you can play into it, which is super, super cool. It seems cool. I hope it's not like a scam. I hope that the premium version doesn't like. Okay, that's enough. I hope it doesn't bug you too much to like do the premium version, but it's definitely worth checking out to begin with because it's very hands-on, kind of Guitar Hero-esque way of learning how to play an instrument. And that leads me to my final suggestion for anyone, and this is based purely on my personal experience. The moment that I put my hands onto a piano for the first time, I immediately wanted to learn how to play songs that I loved. And that's how I learned how to play keyboard. I obviously knew about scales, but I didn't know about chords because I was playing the flute. Like, I was a monophonic instrument. So I had to learn. And I would play along with music that I loved. First single key, finding that bass note, that tonic note, branching out into like the perfect fifth to figure out that I was in the right key. And then eventually I was like improvising and, playing harmonies along with melodies and stuff like that. Fundamental understanding of how scales and chord modes work will help you move around music so much easier. And I really believe that having a direct personal relationship with an input device like a guitar or a piano will really help you as an electronic musician. It's just a really fantastic, intuitive way of getting music into your DAW. A little brief diversion on the same subject regarding drums. Building Blocks, Audible Genius Building Blocks will have you do some drum programming, but I'm also going to suggest 808.pixel.de. This is a website that has a bunch of classic drum patterns written in the sort of style that the sequencer that drum machine used. And then you can go to something like drumbit.app and start playing around with programming them. Drum programming is something that people have a lot of blockers around. They feel like they aren't programming interesting drums. So being able to directly connect some really classic drum patterns from songs that you maybe have heard to programming them yourself and how that works will be a really, really great sort of revelatory experience, I believe. And both of those are completely free. Okay, the last pillar is mixing and mastering, and specifically mixing. It's hard for us to feel confident in our tracks that we're making when we start to getting to make music if they don't sound like the tracks that we love. So we have genre, which informs arrangement, sound design, and a lot of other things. We have synthesis, which helps us understand how those sounds are made. We have music theory, which helps us understand how the use of notes, tonal notes, moves the energy throughout the track, which also informs arrangement. And then we have mixing. This is where the sort of transparent and I think most monolithic part of music production lies. Monolithic in that it's a thing that when we hear a piece of music, all of it's baked in there. It comes to us as this perfect thing that we just sort of like look at and we're like, wow, that's so cool. Like, I love that. We can play the notes in that piece of music. We can probably get a synthesizer or something like that can make those sounds and program those drums. Mixing is one of those transparent things that's very hard to pick out. Like, for instance, EQ, compression, the use of reverb, panning, saturation, and all the other tools we have at our disposal to mix a piece of music so that it sounds the way that we want it to. This has always been the hardest thing for me to learn. Back in the day when I was writing music and my tracks didn't sound right, they weren't punchy, they weren't big. It's taken me a long time to learn. And my first suggestion for this is a man named Dan Worrell. Dan Worrell is a fucking treasure. He is an audio engineer on YouTube who makes videos directed at certain subjects that are perfectly digestible, perfectly explained, and not difficult to understand. I guess those two go well together. It's not going to be like sort of this one-stop shop like, oh, I now understand everything about mixing. But the fact of the matter is mixing is a very subjective thing. As of the time of filming this video right now, Dan's most recent video was how loud should my drums be? He was answering some questions from people that sent him in some questions. And his response not only validated something that I've been doing for a long time, but also was just so good. Like, the way that he explained how to deal with drums as an anchor track and mix around them was brilliant. And when I hear somebody give advice like that, like, I'm just like, okay, this explains it in a way that I think everybody should probably check out. He has a ton of videos on things like loudness and EQ and saturation. He's one of those people that just knows how to talk about things. And by the way, don't fucking fuck with Dan Worrall. Like, he will clap back at you. Dan, I love you. Thank you for everything that you do. Check out Dan Worrall's YouTube channel. Pick some videos that maybe you are interested in, like subjects that you're interested in, and start amassing knowledge. Start thinking about what he's talking about and trying to apply it to your productions. All right, the next two are websites. Lander's How to Mix seems like a pretty great little read to start instilling some of the concepts of mixing into your head. So check that out. And then iZotope, the creators of Ozone, Nectar, a bunch of plugins that I use all the time. They have a whole portal for learning how to mix that I will link in the video description. Tons of resources, things about guitar, things about drums, things about, all kinds of stuff. I don't know how iZotope heavy their learning is, but, I think one of the things is that with all of this, just because a concept shows you it with a particular tool doesn't mean, in most cases, you need that particular tool to do the thing they're talking about. All of this can be applied via whatever tool you have at hand. So if there's a particular like mid-side EQ trick, you can usually do that with like your stock EQ in Ableton or something like that. So we have Dan Worrall, we have How to Mix from Lander, we have the Audio Mixing Learn portal from iZotope, and then I'm going to suggest this because, again, everybody learns differently. This is called the Recording Engineer's Handbook. I was handed this when, well, no, I had to pay for it, but when I went to audio engineering school, they gave me this book that I paid for, and it's huge. It has a ton of information in there. So if you're somebody who likes to learn by reading, or maybe like skimming a subject in a book or an ebook, because I think it's available for Kindle as well, the Recording Engineer's Handbook is a perennial resource. Like a lot of the techniques and tools in there and ideas do not go away. So definitely think about investing in that. Maybe you can peruse the subjects in it that you're curious about, or just read the whole thing all the way through. I don't know, if you're a masochist. Just remember that with all of this stuff, the only way that it will stick and the only way that you will actually progress as a producer and a musician is if you move back and forth between the learning phase, the amassing knowledge phase, and application phase. Learn, apply. Learn, apply. It's Bloom's taxonomy. I think is it Bloom's taxonomy? That's fine. Yeah, Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy is at this point, outdated form of learning. It's a way that they tried to build a system of how people learn things. And I think about it a lot, even though it's no longer like the current prevalent theory on learning. A lot of it is this sort of loop between understanding, application, and then synthesis, meaning being able to recognize a subject, understand what makes it what it is, and then apply that, and then eventually critique it, which I think is something that we all need to do with our music eventually. So you do have a lot ahead of you in terms of dedication and learning and patience and practice. And there will be failures, and you will make stuff that maybe you're not happy with. But every single time you do that, you have an opportunity to learn, and you have an opportunity the next time to do better. Don't get down on yourself. These are things that take a long time. As Dan said in his latest video, when someone was feeling not confident about their mixes, he said, it takes about 5 years to get proficient with an instrument. And you can't expect all of these other tiers. Remember, music theory and instrument practice is just one of these tiers, one of these facets of production that we've been talking about. You can't expect to get there overnight. You have to be dedicated, you have to practice, you have to learn, you have to apply. But guess what? This is a lifelong, lovely hobby that we can all do. It enriches us, it's fun as heck. It can really allow us to express ourselves in wonderful ways. So be patient, don't give up, enjoy the process, and get out there and learn stuff. I would be a terrible salesman if I didn't say at the end of this that, I do lessons. So if you want to dive any deeper into any of this stuff, one-on-one with me, I would be happy to do so. But I do urge you to check out the links in the description, which of course, includes a link to my education service as well, but has everything here that I've talked about. Go check it out. See if it sparks any little brain fireworks in you, and then make something. I'm staring at the camera authentically now. I want you to feel my statement. So that's it from me on this subject. I hope this was helpful to you as a fledgling music producer, or maybe even not so fledgling. Maybe you found something you didn't know about before. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, I said the thing I say at the end before I said the thing that I say before the thing at the end. My name is Jeremy. This is Red Means Recording, and I hope you have a wonderful day. So I wake in the morning and step outside and I take a deep breath and I get warm. Ow!